Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is Butch Shorak, Options University, Friday, September 7th, 2012. And the 4-day trading week is almost over. And access to this video for educational and informational purposes only. Nothing contained in this video, website, or promotional material constitutes a promotion, recommendation, solicitation, or offer of any particular investment security or transaction. Options University provides educational services that are meant to teach you the risks and rewards of trading stocks and options, and we are not a service that tells you what to trade. We are not implying or guaranteeing any profit, and as always, do not trade with money that you cannot afford to lose. Let's take a look at what's happened so far this week in the first 3 days of trading. And as we look at it, here we are. Here's our 3 days right there. And can you say breakout? 1420 was acting as the top of our trading range. And 1396, 1398 was acting as the bottom. And we had spent a good deal of time there since the beginning of August. All right, here we are in September. It's a new month. And breakout breaks out through the 1420 and all the way up to the next resistance area at 1432 with a day that was up approximately 26 points on Thursday. Can you say too fast, too far? Well, that will remain to see what happens on Friday morning as we see whether there's follow-through from this big move up in the market. Let's take a closer look at what we've got here as far as our trend. We are back in an uptrend, and we are definitely in an upcycle, as today we had a higher high and a higher low. As we look at the rest of the week as it began, we saw that there was much indecision as we went down, hit that 30-day moving average, which we talked about on at the beginning of the week, and then we kind of had an indecisive day with not much of a decision being made. And then Thursday morning we had news come out of Europe as Dracht talked about the fact that they were thinking about buying bonds from these countries that had bonds that they wanted to have sold. They were going to limit to 3-year bonds, but the ECB was finally taking a good position. We had good money come out on the unemployment numbers, so it ended up being a good day in the market, as you can say breakout. We basically, from 10:30 on, only picked up another 5 points in the S&P. It all took place very early, but it closed at the high of the day at 1432.12, up about 2% for the day. Quite a move in the market, and we'll see whether it continues and has follow through. Next target, if it breaks through here, is 1440. All right, let's take a look at the Dow, see if it did the same thing. Well, Dow's at previous highs. S&P wasn't. As we look at the S&P, we see that we broke out into new highs, new multi-year highs, as we had this huge breakout in the S&P. It's been a couple years since we've been that high. All right, so Dow basically went up to resistance. We'll see whether the Dow pulls back. Dow did do it on high volume, but not to the same extent that the S&P did, as it broke out strong. Looking at the NASDAQ, we saw with the NASDAQ we had a 12-year high. That's decades. 12-year high out of the NASDAQ, as it certainly broke out with this big day in the market. Last time that the S&P saw these levels was January 2008. I guess the world and the economy is in better position than we actually think it is. Or could it be too far, too fast? We shall see. Looking at the Russell, it looked very much like the S&P as it broke out into new highs, and we see that it broke out of its trading zone completely. Will there be follow through tomorrow? Watch that first hour and it'll help you determine what's going on. Oh, what happened to the VIX? Exactly what you would expect. VIX pulled back with that kind of an outbreak, and we see that we're back at that around 15.6 where we close for the day, as the VIX definitely pulled back in this month of September, which typically is the worst month of the year. What will it do this year? We shall see. Looking at the bonds pulled back. Market pulled up, bonds pulled back. Maybe headed for that other area of support that we have down here in the bonds. As it turns out, the stocks broke out before the bonds did to the upside. Let's take a look at some of our other financials and some of our other ETFs. Looking at XLF, we see that it too, the banking sectors and the financial sector broke up with the overall market. Not a big surprise, and to new highs. Let's now take a look at oil, see what oil did as the market broke out on this Friday with all this good news. Pullback in oil, still trading in a trading range that looks something like that. So no breakout on oil, just trading within its trading range that it's been in for a while. Let's take a look and see what gold did, as we might have had a flight out of gold into the market, and we see actually not much of a pullback in gold, as we see gold being at quite high, as it was over 1700 for a while today, as we see the GLD Spider Trust closed at right around 165 for a big day up. Potential reversal signal out of gold. We'll see whether that's true. Look at that big day in gold that we had, as we had news come out of Europe that took place on last Friday, and then kind of consolidated, and then boom, breakout today with a gap up. Next, let's take a look and see what kind of volume we had in the spider, see if that can give us any light as to whether it was real or not real. So looking at the volume on the spider, we see that the volume was not as high as it had been prior to August, but certainly a high volume day for August, even though we are in September, but we're showing more volume than we had been shown for the last 30 days. So with that, that's the market that took place today. And what I want you to do is I want you to take a look at that first half hour, look at the first hour, see where the opening high, opening low is, to give you some kind of idea on which way the market is moving in this month of September as the big boys come back and take control. Is this a head fake prior to a big pullback? That would be my best bet. But remember, we trade what we see, not what we think. Thanks for being here. For those of you that are gold members, we're going to go ahead and look at our normal stocks to watch. And for the rest of you, if you'd like to see more free videos from Options University, go to www.optionsuniversity.com/free gold. So, with that thought, this is Butch Shorek, Options University, Friday, September 7th, 2012. And to our gold members, welcome back. Let's take a look at the SPX and see what we can expect for Friday and looking towards next week. Well, as we know, if we look at statistics for what happens in the month of September, it's usually a month that has big pullbacks in it, and don't be surprised if that's what we get at some point. Many times Wall Street, what it likes to do is run things up before it pulls it back. If you look at our diagonal lines, you see that we're headed up there for 1440 if it follows through. Currently sitting at 1432. Last night at about 10 o'clock, that is Thursday night, futures were relatively flat. So what kind of a day can you expect after a day with a big move like that? Many times you'll see an inside day, and you'll see a bit of a retracement. When you have real reasons for the market to move, many times you'll see a follow-through. So look at that first hour, find out where the first hour high is and where the first hour's low is. We have big numbers coming out on Friday morning, and those have to do with the economic numbers from the month of August. Those economic numbers have to do with employment. How it is our unemployment rate in August, and how many jobs did we create in August? So those are the things that we'll be looking at as we go into Friday morning in this first week in September. Let's take a look at some of our other stocks to watch. Looking at Amazon. Amazon had news today, as we saw that Amazon had a nice little raise of about 2%, and it's coming out with news on its Kindle here shortly. So Amazon had a nice little pop today, up about 2.1%, up $5.16 to kind of lead the market up. It's been doing that. Apple didn't do much today as it didn't get above its previous high, sitting there at 676.27. The largest cap stock that we have out there in the world today is Apple, and it certainly did not really participate in this overall rally today. Many times you'll see that happen because many of the people that want to own Apple already own Apple, and then if the market keeps going up, it will follow in a day or two. AutoZone finally had a bit of a pop as it popped the last 2 days and gave us that real-time signal of some kind of a spinning top down there, and we see that it has jumped 2 days in a row and popped past that 50-day moving average. So AutoZone may be showing a little life. However, notice it is sitting at resistance, that previous resistance from just a little over a week ago. Next, we'll take a look at CMG. CMG, one of those companies that knew nothing but how to run last year, did show a nice little run as it turned to be many think a good buy, although look at it, it's still sitting there way below all the moving averages. So while it has a breakout, it's still trading within its normal trading zone. Look for this as a potential money to make to the downside when we see the market roll back over after this current uptrend. Taking a look at Google, big surprise. Google, new highs. Broke out, approaching 700. Let's see what kind of an impediment 700 puts out there for Google. And it did it with good volume. If the market's going to follow through, you can expect that Google will follow through on the second day of this rally. And then we look at Green Mountain Coffee, didn't participate, trading near the top of its zone. Another potential for a pullback if the overall market pulls back. Green Mountain Coffee did not participate in today's big rally. ISRG had a nice little pop. Not really showing us anything like it used to show us before. Did get a higher high, higher low, but watch this stock carefully as you can potentially make some money to the downside when the market does roll over. Market, however, remember, is in an uptrend. And looking at MasterCard, look at that, popped out of that recent zone, just about, and into that bigger yellow zone that we were talking about. MasterCard showed a nice little pop with the overall market today. Is this a fool's rally? We shall see. Watch carefully, looking for higher highs and higher lows, or lower highs and lower lows. McDonald's popped out of its trading range and headed for the highs of there around the 200-day moving average, which is right around 93. Let's take a look at Nike and see that I had a little flag on Nike, got a higher high, higher low on Wednesday, and then Thursday pop and went past its reasonably most recent high, headed for that 200-day moving average. As these things hit the 200 moving average, these are our laggard stocks, and these are the ones where you have the potential to make money to the downside when we have our next pullback. Priceline did not participate. It certainly got a higher high and higher low. It was up 1.48%, but look at its relative strength. The overall market still trading below that 200-day moving average, and look at this. We have a crossover there. Not a very bullish sign for Priceline. Still hasn't broken out of its recent trading range. It was higher than this a couple days ago. And finally, let's take a look at W.W. Grainger, a stock that had been running very nicely, showing good strength, had difficult clearing that 30-day moving average today. Not showing the kind of strength that many of these other stocks have shown. May not be a high flyer, but it certainly has stability on its side as it's trading well within that trading range that we've seen from W.W. Grainger for ever since about the middle of July, ever since earnings when it had its big pop. So with that, that's the week that was as we do our market recap. And we'll see what happens tomorrow morning. Big numbers coming out with the employment numbers. That very well could affect the market one way or the other. So watch those futures to give you an idea of where you expect the market to open. And watch that first hour to see where the opening high, opening low is, to give you an idea on where the market's headed, as we may have gone too far, too fast on Thursday, September 6th. And now we'll see what happens. Will there be follow through on Friday, September 7th, 2012? This is Butch Shorek, Options University. Thank you for being here.